Hey, dads and those who love them. I, for a couple months now, have joked around that I've got a face for audio podcasting, but we're going to do something different this time. I do have the audio podcast dropping tomorrow with Love Being a Dad and our interview with Florin Cristea, or better known to the fans of the band Liliac, Papa Liliac. But we're going to put this into our YouTube channel as well, so you can see the video. Again, first time we've done it, so be a little gracious with the technology side of that, just like the early episodes to Love Being a Dad podcast. But you can still find the audio podcast at lovebeingadad.com or wherever you get your podcast. If you're new to Love Being a Dad, please go and subscribe to wherever you get your podcast, so that way you can be a part of this wonderful podcast that we're doing to really give support to dads and families overall. And we have lots of fun interviews that are still coming up. This week, again, my interview is with Florin Cristea, the father who really started the band Liliac. And so we talk about him coming to the United States from Romania, the early years of the band playing on the Santa Monica Pier, and really up to where they are today with finalizing their national tour and getting ready to go to India for their first international gig. It was just a pleasure and an honor to have Papa Liliac on to do the interview, so we wanted to share it. So again, thank you and enjoy the interview. All right, listeners, I am excited today to have with me Florin Cristea, or better known to the fans, Papa Liliac. Florin, thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me today, and I'm super excited.
Yeah. So it's a podcast entitled Love Being a Dad, and I was looking at all the dads out there in the media that I follow.
Yeah.
And again, this is a fairly new podcast. You were one that kept on coming back to me because I see you all the time in my social media. I've been following the band now for several years. It's almost like watching your kids grow up in a lot of ways. And I just thought a podcast about dads has to have Papa Liliac on it at some point to talk about all the things that you're doing. So for our listeners who don't know who you are, and I'll explain more about some of the band and stuff, can you talk about you, Florin Cristea, as you growing up? What you're from Romania and you got over to the US. Just a little bit about your history before we kind of dive into some of the questions.
Well, everybody calls me Papa Liliac.
Yeah.
But Florin Cristea, I was born in Transylvania, not too far away from the Castle of Dracula. And that's how the band got the name Liliac, which means vampire bat in Romanian.
Okay.
And when I was 12 years old, we came to US. But before then, as you guys know, Romania was a communist country.
Yeah.
And my father actually tried to cross the border back in the communist times so he can bring the family here. And he got caught at the border and he did 9 months in a communist jail.
Oh, wow.
The communists fell. The revolution happened in 89. Then in 1990, a friend of his asked him to come visit California.
Okay.
So he automatically went to the immigration with his jail certificate, and he said, look, I tried to bring my family here during that time, and I was actually because communists, they always close the border from people leaving. Not about people coming, it's mostly about leaving. They want to keep everything. And the USA right away approved him and brought us to America, and we became citizens after 5 years. And growing up here, I got married young, 5 kids, but I fell in love with rock and roll, with American rock and roll.
It's awesome. And your start really was more in the pop side of things, though, right?
Right. At the beginning, I was doing pop music, and a lot of people think that, oh, you had 5 kids to start a band.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I didn't really plan that. I always loved music since I was a little kid. So
Yeah.
I remember coming to US, I was 12 years old. At 13, my mom bought me an accordion,
Yeah.
and I started learning, the notes. Actually, I'm self-taught,
Yeah.
uh, and then piano and keyboard. So I was always into music. But I've done some church music before, started doing the pop music. So uh, I always loved music since I was a little kid.
Yeah. And again, it's amazing. When did you start? So for the listeners, you have 5 kids. You mentioned that. We have Samuel, who is 23,
Yes.
right? And then Abigail, 22, Melody,
20. And then we have Ethan, who's 15, and Justin is 14.
Yeah. So you had them bam, 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 gave your wife a break for about 5 years and then kind of finished off the thing, right?
Well, see, the thing is, my wife was the one that, because she comes from a family of 12 kids.
Wow.
The one that wanted, after 3, I was like, this is it.
Yeah.
We got to raise this kid. Or one more. And after years, after we had Melody, how many years was a break between Melody and Ethan?
Yeah.
So basically, Ethan is 15, and Melody is 25 years.
5 years, yeah.
I gave in and said, okay, one more. And then the last one was kind of accidental.
Yeah, that happens, doesn't it? So yeah, if you would have had 12, you would have had, instead of a band, a symphony. I mean, so it's a good thing you got the 5. So early on, for our listeners who may not be aware of the band, you were playing, your kids were you were in Los Angeles and you were doing stuff on the Santa Monica Pier, right? With the 3 oldest, just kind of going out and doing some shows on the pier.
Yeah. So basically, we lived in Oregon.
Okay.
We moved there right after I had Sam and Abby, which they were born in California. And then we moved in Oregon. I had some friends. They say, hey, come here. And that's where I had the other 3 kids. So we lived 9 years in Oregon.
Okay.
We had an elder care business,
and
I used to working for a few years, and it got really hard, when the are little, and elder care business means like you have, we had our own home with like 10 bedrooms, and we had 5 elder people who were taking care of one level, and then we had the family that was living at the bottom level. So it was very hard because 24-hour care, meaning like we didn't even have time for the kids, and the kids were not doing good in school. And then we said, hey, I was trying to do, I bought equipment. I was trying to do music on the side, but my wife needed my help. So raising the kids and the elder care business, it was very hard. And we said, look, we got to close this business because it wasn't going really well. It was 2009 when everybody was losing their house.
Tough year.
So after we moved the elder people in other homes, we tried to sell the place, but we couldn't. So we went through the, foreclosure like everybody else.
Yeah.
The best way to start over was bankruptcy. And then we moved to California with all the 5 kids, back where, I grew up, and my family, my parents lived there. And they say, hey, we'll help you out if you need help. So we started from zero back in California, in Downey, California, which has a lot of history. The Carpenters are from Downey, California. James Hetfield from Metallica are from Downey, California. Even Weird Al is from Downey, California. They were born there, went to high school.
And
it was interesting that I didn't even know that all these stars, legends are from there. And we just picked that, city for, because it was close to, Hollywood, because Samuel was doing some acting classes. My oldest, 9-10 years old. And I was like, okay, we're in the middle. We can visit our parents in Anaheim, but we can also quickly go to auditions. So it was perfect. It's just, I opened a studio in the apartment, and I started working with our local artists, like rappers. But then my kids, like Samuel, after he got his braces, he wasn't getting any more acting roles because, I guess fitting in for the, and then I just worked in the studio, and the kids started showing interest that they want to play music, hearing all these musicians coming by and artists, and I even had rappers. And
Yeah.
so they asked me, Dad, we like to do some music. And I was like, are you guys sure? Because I don't want to waste my time. I mean, you want to really do
Right.
music or play around? They were little, and they were like, well, yes, we want to do it. They didn't know what they're getting themselves into, because I told them, if I start working with you guys and you want it seriously, I'm going to produce you like a real producer.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. But a friend of mine said to me, hey, in order to get the band, or them to get confidence with audience, or at least test their talent, take them to the Santa Monica Pier. You can get a permit, and I think it was like $38. I remember it.
Yeah.
$8 per person to get a permit for a whole year,
Okay.
and then you practice to perform on the pier. And so I did for all of them. I even got a permit for myself, in case, because sometimes they would have the pier police that would check your permit, and if you don't have it, they will ticket. Or so I said, I'm there mixing at the mixing board. I don't want them to say, hey, what about you? What are you doing here? And I have to mix. So we did that. And for about 5 years, I mean, I saw that the crowds liked the talent.
Yeah.
They were good at it. I was like, man, and then I started recording them. So every week, Monday to Friday, I would work in the studio to make money to pay the bills.
Yep.
And I would sacrifice every Saturday and Sunday to take them there to the pier.
Yeah. Wow.
For
And
eight years.
that is an amazing amount of time, amazing sacrifice on your part, your family, your wife, although you're spending time with your kids, so that's great.
The thing I love, even now, Liliac is a successful national band. We have 3 tours that we achieved. The Queen of Hearts album got to number 29 on iTunes rock charts. Right now, Metallica and everybody. Independent, not even the record label. We didn't even spend marketing promotion. All we did, we announced our album is out. And fans were downloading. So many fans were downloading that we were on top 100 for a whole month. On YouTube, over 108 million views. They generate over 1.5 million every month. TikTok, over 500,000 followers. Facebook, almost 1 million followers. YouTube, same thing, like almost half subscribers. So all this thing happened, and I think it was because of those days and the experience they had on the Santa Monica Pier.
And again, that's amazing. Again, I have an older son who's 29, and he did music for a little while. He's teaching now in Little Rock, but he did the whole Nashville scene for a bit. And it actually had a little bit of limited success. He was at the Bluebird Cafe 3 times. He had a song played on Nashville radio. And he always says part of the thing that helped him is when he was like 11 or 12 years old, I took him to a karaoke bar in Virginia and kind of got him up in front of hundreds of people singing old, Johnny Cash songs and some of those kind of things. And so I think that early exposure is pretty important, right? So when did you transition? Because you added Ethan and Justin then into the band. When did you kind of transition then, saying, okay, this is going to be something that we can go with, and go from the weekends to this is us, this is our Liliac, the family band, and we're gonna do this. When did that kind of all happen?
So sometimes I thought to myself that, I mean, I love being there with my kids. I would love the reaction, but I knew, okay, the kids are, once they hit 18, 21, Dad, look, we've done this, it was a great experience, but we're gonna move on with our life, because I mean, we're street performers at the end of the day. And this is not success in the sense of like, we want to make, probably, go to college and get a career, sustainable income, even though they were making money off tips and selling CDs on the pier. And but first I started with the 3 kids. They were pop, like an act. Samuel used to Jackson stuff. And then I thought of Ethan and Justin when they were little, actually. They were like 5, 6. When I was going on, we would spend all day at the pier, which was like 30 miles from our house,
Yeah.
our apartment, and they would just stay home and play video games. And I said, you know what? You guys come,
Yeah.
even if you perform, just spend the day with us while your brothers and sisters are performing. Just watch them, and because you just perform like 3 hours, and the
Right.
rest we spend it at the beach, and sometimes they'll play volleyball and
Yeah. Just
and,
amazing.
and just so you don't just stay home and play video games all day long, the whole weekend.
Yeah.
So that's what happened, and then we added them as an act on the Michael Jackson Thriller. They would have like costumes, and
Okay.
so fans, they were very little, and only on that song they would join in, and people loved it. They loved it. They were all little, and they just liked it. And then later on, I was like, I told them, I man, I see that you guys are confident, you perform with no problems, and the only way you could, do it together, you have to be a band. Everybody got a instrument. So I went to the local Downey Music Center, and I just kind of looked at them. I was like, Abigail is really good with, dancing rhythm. I said, and she doesn't sing. I said, you be on the drum. Melody was singing. I said, you sing.
Yeah.
And I said, you play the bass, because Ethan and Justin, they're not, they're too little to play an instrument that will be up front. Samuel, I just thought, you be on the guitar and just sing harmonies. And Ethan, I put another guitar in his hand as a rhythm. And Justin, because his hands were so little, I said, keyboard is easy to play, press the keys. And because guitars, it's, it requires a lot of strength, or, bass. And I took him there not knowing that while taking lessons, and, they would kind of get influence from other musicians there at the store, rock musicians, that they would pick up on the rock music. So, I always loved classic rock. So at first, I introduced them to Joan Jett, easy fret songs like I love rock and roll, and Kiss, Rock and Roll Night. So those kind of easy, happy songs, and they started performing in them live, and the crowd just loved it. More people was going bigger, and I remember we recorded Wild Thing by the Trogs. And a lot of people were amazed by Melody's voice. She said, man, she's got a rock and roll voice, because she has a rasp to her voice. But in the meantime, she heard me talking to the manager about Ronnie James Dio, because I was always trying to find new cover songs that attract more crowds, and popular songs. And usually the classic songs brings everybody in. And somebody told me, hey, just do Rainbow in the Dark by Dio, one of the songs. Well, of course, first they started with Enter Sandman and Crazy Train. Those were very, very popular. Then The Trooper, and then Paranoid. And then he told me about Ronnie James Dio, and Melody heard me talking about it. So she went home. She was only like 13 or 14 years old, and she started searching Ronnie James Dio, and she just fell in love with his voice. And she was like, man, I want to sing like that one day, powerful and with that emotion and energy. So next thing, after a while, I was like, hey, let's do Rainbow in the Dark. So for her, it was easy to learn, and I could see her vocals develop, and then we started playing this live on the pier, and the crowds were getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That the police told us that we need a stage. We're blocking the Harmonica Pier.
That's awesome. And I'm going to tell you, I stumbled across you guys years ago, and it was, I think my wife and I and my son and some friends, we had gone to a Shinedown concert, and opening for Shinedown was Hailstorm. And so became a big, huge fan of Lizzie Hale. And I was doing the thing you do, after a concert, you come back, I want more. And I was doing all the YouTube videos. And in the process, off to the side, it was the Liliac. And all of a sudden I hit you know, how YouTube's got the video and then they got all the stuff on the side. And I played it, and the very first one that I listened to was Crazy Train. And I just saw that something you posted that it just went over 10 million views now, right?
It just reached 10 million views, which
Yeah.
I'm super excited because like I said before, we did Enter Sandman, and
Yeah.
I thought was, I see so many bands that did Enter Sandman and they
Yeah.
went viral, and
Yeah.
said, hey, let's do a video too, since we're performing it on the pier.
Yeah.
And it did viral a whole year, but it just did nothing happen.
Yeah.
I said, you know what? I guess we're just gonna be here on the pier. At least let's do Crazy Train,
Yeah.
film on the pier, and then that way we invite everybody that they find out on the internet and they like the song. They know where we at. We're at the Santa Monica Pier, because
Yeah.
so that's why we did it, not knowing that right after we released Crazy Train, after a month, the World's Best on CBS, the director, saw the video and asked. She emailed me and said, "We need a family band for our show, and it's a CBS show, and we saw the Crazy Train on the pier, and I think you guys are the best fit."
Mm-hmm.
And at first, I was like, I didn't know how big they are. I thought it's, living in LA, there's so many production companies that try to seek talent.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about it. And she insisted, please, this is not like America's Got Talent where you audition.
Yeah.
We already pick the ones that are established, meaning like we see they got something.
Yeah.
And then we make them compete against each other. So we have 50 talents. It's called the World's Best, from all around the world.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a huge, big. And I said, okay, what do you want us to do? And she said, well, come and audition at CBS. And so I said, okay, we'll come. But she was like, bring the acoustic instruments because we don't have where to audition. I was like, look, I was a little stubborn because I was happy with the pier. I was like, you know, it started to go viral. I was like, we have a big chance.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, unless you let us play with the distortion guitars and drums and the real way, I'm not coming.
Yeah.
She was like, well, I said, let me bring my own PA system that we use on the pier.
Yeah.
We'll just set it up in one of those rooms. And so said, okay, let's do it. So we went there, but when we arrived and we saw the big CBS, Warner Bros., everybody was there. Like I'm talking about like, I was like, holy, what myself into here. Yeah. And, had all those people. And so they gave us a big room. It had a big oval table, and it had American Idol in the middle of it. Yeah. And she was like, yeah, this is where we did auditions. And where you guys are setting up right now, that's where Kelly Clarkson had her first audition. Wow. Like, wow.
Yeah.
We were impressed. I said, all right, give us 30 minutes. We'll set up. So we did. We started setting up. And, the kids started tuning their guitars, and Samuel started doing a lick on the guitar. And then they were, are you guys ready? I was like, yeah, we're ready. Yeah. So these two producers the producer of the show, and Melody was like, what? We're going to perform in front of 3 people? And she was like, you want more people here? She said, yes. On the pier, we perform in front of hundreds of people. And we're like, okay. So she went in and brought from the offices all the producers, editors, everybody, Warner Bros., everybody that was there. They filled out the whole room. And Liliac started performing. They started with Crazy Train. Yeah. And she was all aboard. And everybody had their phones and they were filming. And
awesome.
They were blown away. Right after they ended Enter Sandman, and they said, right after that, she called me. She said, they want Liliac. They want Liliac really bad. We brought in here so many viral YouTubers. Yeah. But when they said, whatever they do on YouTube, it's perfect. It's viral. But when we bring them here and they perform in front of the producer, they're nervous. They cannot deliver the way they deliver on YouTube. Yeah. So she said, Dad, you're a good dad. Taking them on the pier is the best thing you could ever do to a band, because they're so confident and they nailed it. Yeah. And that's got the gig.
And we'll on our episode page, we'll put some links to all those kind of things so the viewers, listeners can see that. It's absolutely amazing. I think if people haven't seen it, or those people under a rock who haven't been exposed yet, we'll get them exposed. But so I want to kind of talk then a little bit about what was your, because it's a dad podcast, how did your dad influence you? Your dad got you out of Romania, got you here, but did your dad have an influence on the way you father?
So basically, my dad, he used to play accordion a little bit
Okay.
before in Romania, and but he wasn't able to really, because he wasn't a player. He just liked it, and
Yeah.
uh, and again, like my dad and my parents, coming from Romania,
Yeah.
they raised right. What my parents did, because I was the middle child. I
Yeah.
had two older sisters. I was the boy, and then I had two younger brothers.
Yeah.
I was the one, even though I was 13, 14 years old, that they took me to help them with their jobs. Like they were doing
Okay.
kind of generous, like offices after
Yeah.
hours, 5 o'clock, everybody goes home. And then they have us go and pick up the trash and vacuum the floors and
Mm,
dust the offices, talking about big companies. And
yeah.
so that's the jobs where they didn't have to speak English, and
Yeah.
they, do that work. So in order to get the jobs done faster, they would took me, my mom and dad took me
Yeah.
aboard, and we would get the jobs done faster. So they kind of helped me. Well, they helped me. I learned, hard working from
Yeah.
a age, that you got to work hard, because I was working at 13 years old,
Right.
14. I was going to school. After school, they would pick me up. I would go help them out, and
Wow.
they weren't paying me or anything, but I
Yeah.
was helping my
Part of being the
parents.
family. Yeah.
So I think that really helped me
Yeah.
understand, or grow up with the idea, I guess, or mentality. I don't know what's the best word to say.
Yeah.
That I wanted to show my kids that, life, nobody's just gonna hand you,
Right.
hey, here, here's money, here's
Right.
a house. You gotta earn
Yeah.
the money. So I always told my kids, you work hard, you earn money, you're gonna, and have a career, you'll
Yeah.
be able to have a great life.
Yeah.
If you don't work hard, you're gonna have a hard life.
Yeah.
So my mentality, and I knew that if you start teaching your kids from young age to work hard and
Yeah.
achieve things, give them something to be passionate about, then they're gonna pick up on it, and then later on they could have a successful life.
Yeah.
So that's what I could say, that I got it from my parents. It's
Yeah.
like, learn how to earn money.
Yeah. And again, that work
And work.
ethic work shows, because you are a hard working family band. Like if you're on social media stuff, you're doing a lot of little, live things, having the coffee, talking to the fans. Man, I don't know of anybody out there that's doing as much interaction with their fan base as you guys are. And I find that really interesting. Again, I saw the interview a while back where Gene Simmons and you guys did the Kiss boat tour. But Gene Simmons was being interviewed by Dan Rather and basically said rock and roll's dead, right? That's what he said. And he was talking about it because the big industry isn't the way the industry used to be. The big,
Yes.
signing, stuff. And you're not doing it that way though, right? Papa Liliac, you're working it. It is blood, sweat, and tears. And you moved the family from Los Angeles to Georgia, right? So you went from
Yes.
a 3-bedroom apartment to a house where kids got their own bedroom. So quality of
Yeah.
life change. But
And a huge studio in the basement. Right
right.
now, we're about 60% done.
Okay.
Before completed, 1,600 square feet studio, where we're gonna do all our music,
Yeah.
video, everything. So that way we don't have to depend on record labels or
Right.
other studios.
Right. And I think that's the way of it almost anymore, because you also get to control the narrative, right? You every
Yes.
day on social media are controlling the narrative. And so a little bit about that, because again, like I said, I've watched your kids and your kids seem so grounded. Your kids seem like they really, really, truly like each other, first off, that they really, really love you and Mama Liliac, right? You can't fake that when I watched, the interviews and stuff that I've watched. How do you keep your kids grounded, Florin, when you've got the exposure that you do? They literally are having millions of people tune in every month to see their social media, looking at the videos. They're out there interacting with the fans. How do you as a parent, and you and your wife as parents, keep your kids grounded to the ground, because there's so many big name, even family bands that, when success happened, they kind of went off the rails a little bit. How are you guys keeping your kids grounded?
Well, I mean, I thinking about it. I think the best way, if kids see that the parents are very involved in their life.
Yeah.
I was very involved in the activity life as well. Like,
Yeah.
since they were all little, besides, taking them to the pier, they wanted to do taekwondo. I took them there to the classes. I wouldn't miss. So after work, I would take them there. If they wanted to go to Six Flags, Disneyland, I always put time. I wouldn't say, oh no, I'm like, even if I was tired or to do something, or I would push myself. And I think that them seeing that, hey, dad, mom is always there for us, they will do anything. I think they appreciate that. And then they stick with their parents. And that's what I could say. And I always try to keep them excited, and you know, always do new stuff and new things. Of course, it's a lot of work because we're independent. If we would have a record label, production companies do everything, then on our shoulders probably would just do music, practice, right, and that's it. But we have to do everything from not from writing music, from recording, from producing it, mixing it. Then we got to do the videos, we got to do the photo shoots, the promotion, marketing, everything we do ourselves. And we always try to think of, sometimes it's tiring because you see other bands that have a big push from the labels, up and coming bands, and they get some bigger gigs and this and then you think like, man, how come we, but again, connections are the way. But at the end of the day, they have to give a lot in order to have those. You kind of give the record label to control everything. I'm afraid of one thing with the record label, if they're going to start changing what's great about Liliac.
And I think that is true. Because then they're doing the narrative, right? They're controlling the social media, they're controlling the narrative. And I love that you do that as a family. It's not just you. I mean, all the kids are being interviewed, they're on different things, and that. So, but you're still a family. So how do you, Papa Liliac, Mama Liliac, handle the disputes that happen amongst kids? Because again, kids are kids, youth are youth, right? So how do you take that and handle those so they don't come into the studio when it's work time? What are the things, you got any tricks that I can give to my dads on this? It's a dad podcast, but any advice on how do you keep that, the family dispute?
Well, that's the
how do you
thing.
handle it?
Well, I told them that at this point, because everybody is, this is basically is their job. Now they make a living, and especially like Samuel, he's got responsibilities. He's got a car payment, insurance. So he knows that now I gotta work. And besides touring, we always have to put things on TikTok or YouTube, because all these platforms pay you more views, you get more content out, you have every month money coming in. Also the band has a Patreon platform where they support the band to keep doing what they're doing. So they all know, and we kind of make a schedule, like, okay, 9 to 5, like everybody else. We work in the studio. We work on what we need to work for Liliac. For example, one day if we need to do promo videos to announce tour dates or this, we kind of put that, let's say Monday. So we set up the cameras. We think, okay, what do we need to promote? We have a merch line. We do that. We have shows coming up. Let's do that. And then all the footages, I give it to Sam. He edits it together, and then then other days, it's either, we work on writing new songs, or we work on learning cover songs. It's always, working on songs. And then at 5 o'clock, everybody goes to the gym, and then whatever, they come home, they play video games or watch a movie or whatever, like everybody else. So we kind of made that And then we have Sunday off, and
Okay.
Saturday,
Good.
uh,
Yeah.
9 to 12 is when we try to finish whatever we started at the beginning of the week.
Yeah. Now,
So we keep
younger
a-
are the younger boys then homeschooled? I mean, were the kids homeschooled
so,
along the way then to be able to
yes.
do some of this, obviously?
So basically, with well, Ethan right now is taking a test and is finished with high school. Justin is
Okay.
the only one. With Justin and Ethan, when they're in school, they do school online,
Okay.
so they get less time to work on the music because they got to do their school.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they usually finish around 3 o'clock, and
Okay.
then they have 2 hours that they practice their guitar, and that's why they're not so involved into the songwriting. But I always told them,
Yeah.
keep writing riffs or come up with something. And a few days ago, Ethan came up with a bass riff that actually they wrote a whole song from it,
Okay.
and a song that might even end up on the album.
Nice.
And coming from a 15-year-old, it was very good. He showed
Yeah.
us a lot of riffs, but one of them was really, really good.
Yeah. That's really cool. So do you
And
have you talked about early on that you started actually doing church music. Do you have a faith or something that kind of grounds your family yet in moving you forward, to keep your kids? Because rock and roll is rock and roll, right? And yet I
yeah,
don't see your kids swearing. I don't see, to keep them out of what, it's the whole idea of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But your kids aren't
right.
those kids. They're again, at least, not on what you're putting out there on the social media. Is there something that also grounds the family and, kind of keeping you out of some of that ugly side of rock and roll?
Yes. Well, especially my wife is very religious. So
Okay.
we grew up in, we're definitely a Christian faith.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I grew up and was raised in a Pentecostal family, so I was very religious, and my wife.
Yeah.
But I got out of because they were very strict and
Yeah.
very, it was kind of at one point that I said this is too much.
Yeah.
But we definitely kept the faith, and my kids as well.
Okay.
But see, the thing is, the way I see rock and roll today, back in the day, rock and roll, like in the 80s, it was all about sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Yeah.
Today is not like that anymore. To be honest, rock star are trying to get on the social media as they can, so they could have as many shows as they can, because rock and roll is not so popular as used to be.
Right.
That's
It's not.
right now, everybody, they don't have time to play around doing drugs and mess up their life because they lose the gigs and they lose. Everybody's trying. I mean, we went on tour and we got to open up for so many bands that we know back in the day had a horrible life, but now everybody's clean and sober and they're trying to get the best show and make their money, and they don't play around anymore. So that scene, in my opinion,
is changing
entirely. And even the young kids, that they're punk kids, and they have the attitude, but I don't think they, probably they smoke pot or something like that. Bands, but to do hard, if they do, they lose, because next they end up. And I don't think that lifestyle or rock and roll is not that anymore. You don't even hear people sing about in their lyrics to say, roots and rock and roll, and like the rock and roll. You don't hear the modern rock and roll bands anymore, like back in the I want to rock and roll. There's no band sing about that anymore today.
It's funny
I
because
mean, write songs about that.
Right. Kiss Destroyer album was my very first album I ever purchased with my own money. I loved when I first saw Crazy Train, because I was a huge Randy Rhoads fan until his tragic death in '82. My room was full of rock and roll posters. It was, Kiss, AC/DC, and even my own son, Andrew, the one that's into music. I early on, when I took him to Kiss concerts, and I was thinking, okay, what am I doing here taking an 11, 12-year-old? But it was a different Kiss concert than I remember. I love that you opened up for Loverboy. It was the first concert I ever went to as a kid. It was Loverboy. And yet it seems like when I see your kids with some of these past, my kind of heroes, that it's really kind of like they're learning from them, like they're really loving on your kids as well, when I see the interviews with some of the things that have happened. So do you see them, in a sense, passing the baton to your family, to your kids?
Well, that's another thing that I was gonna talk about. That uh, well, there's a few like for example, Vinny Appice,
Yeah.
Ronnie James was Dio's drummer in Black Sabbath. I see that he did pay attention to us, and he brought us in. He even took us. I mean, he really took notice
Yeah.
because actually Liliac covering Rainbow in the Dark and Holy Diver went
Mm,
huge. He
huge.
helped even Dio's because everybody was requesting now
Yeah.
Dio. And I remember when they did Rainbow in the Dark on the World's Best on CBS on TV.
Yeah.
People, I would never ever in my lifetime think that I would hear a classic heavy metal on national TV in 2019.
Right.
That was a big shock because you see that everybody chooses to sing on these shows, kind of like popular songs from today or this or that or all kind of acts. And that was a very big success. And uh, that's what I was gonna say. Like Kiss, for example, and a lot of bands back in the day, they made a big name for themselves.
Yeah.
But I think Gene Simmons have signed and tried to work with new bands, but nothing really happened the way he probably wanted.
Right. Yeah.
So there's right now with the so much internet, so many bands being able to just put music out. Uh, it's very hard. Nobody has the recipe
Yeah.
anymore. And I think as people are asking me, Papa Liliac, well, do you have the recipe to what you did with Liliac so somebody else could repeat that? And to be honest, it was probably the right ingredients without even
Right.
thinking about it. They were all young. Melody had a special voice, a raspy, one of
Yes.
a
Yeah.
voice. Samuel, crazy, hardworking,
Yeah.
that became a shredder that
Yeah.
he could play Randy Rhoads note by note.
Yeah.
And being young and doing the videos the way we did it
Mm.
and put it on the internet. And back then, the algorithm that they created now on Facebook and YouTube,
Yeah.
it was not going against bands or businesses and stuff. It was very easy to get to people, and that's how we got so many millions of views so quick
Yeah.
on our own. Now things changed. Like
Yeah.
even today, uh, they created some algorithms that you have to pay Facebook in order to show your videos to your own fans, your own followers.
Right.
So things, it's way harder right now.
Yeah.
Than
And,
to be a
and
few
again,
years.
I think, I think you're right. The recipe is what you've been doing, hard work. I mean, you're putting in time and hard work. If anybody goes back and looks at, what your history, I think the first video I ever saw, or when, after I found Liliac and went back, I think the youngest one, I think, it was a cover of Rihanna or something, and it was only the oldest three. And I think Melody was like 11, and
Yeah.
Samuel was doing harmonies and nailing it. And I just think, man, great talent. But the world's full of great talent, right? That's my
Yeah.
son, my oldest son in Nashville learned that. I mean, you go to Nashville, you go to the bar, and he pointed it out. He's like, Dad, do you remember 3 bars ago the name of that artist? I'm like, no. I said he was really good. He's like, that's the problem sometimes with Nashville is everybody's good. And so you got to be at the right time, right place, and those things. So the future of Liliac, you're writing your own stuff. You had your first real big bus tour this year. You're finishing up here in the next couple days. You got your first international gig coming up in India. The future, as you look at Liliac future, how do you protect that? Because again, your kids are growing up and they're not that cute Santa Monica Pier kid band. They're a real rock and roll band. They're getting, again, as all of us do, they're less and less cute as the older we get. But their talent is becoming much more solidified. So like marriage, and I saw that Abigail's is engaged, right? So do you have, dating partners have to sign something that in order to date one of our kids, you got to keep them in the band? Or, I mean, how do you protect from that?
I wish I could.
That'd be great, wouldn't it? Like no compete
nice.
clause. Yeah.
Well, see, the thing is, so basically, first question that you asked me about, yes, there's not going to be that cute young band anymore.
No.
And again, I was always open that if there's a right deal maybe,
Yeah.
you know, the record label. And if in the label is an A&R, which is artist representative, that
Yeah.
usually they're the ones that signs the band and works with the band. And I said to myself, if there's somebody there like me that would give and do anything for the band,
Yeah.
I would definitely would agree for the band to go on and make them, you know, the biggest stars like they've done other bands. But if it's not, it's a loss of time, because if you have somebody that, oh yeah, we'll sign you, and then they have so many bands and they just keep you there on the shelf, and you're there waiting and calling them, hey man, you need to get us gigs, get us a record
Yeah.
out, or man, I'm trying to get the
No,
sun out of
you're good. You're good. Yeah.
you know, trying to get a, you know, something, and they don't answer their phone because they're busy maybe with let's say what bands they have on, Def Leppard or all,
Yeah.
or maybe Shinedown and Hailstorm, and that's, then we could lose like that. So that's my biggest fear. Not that some people think like, oh, Papa Liliac's against record labels. It's not that.
No.
We need a hero, and right now I'm Liliac's hero, meaning I gave my life. I closed my studio to any artist but Liliac.
Right.
I was making $dollars an hour, and I closed it down, and I just worked. I've done everything from tour managing, producing, engineering.
Right.
Then right now I'm there as a contractor building the studio so we can save the money, because if a contractor would do it, he would charge like 3 times. So
Right.
in order to save the money, I'm the one negotiating with the electrician, with plumber, with this, so we get that done. So I'm doing everything for Liliac. We need somebody like that.
Yeah.
That could be Papa Liliac. I'll be the next you, but now I got more connections that you got. Then I'll be happy to probably just be their manager, personal manager, to make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to, and no drugs and no crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But that's I think right now, being independent until we maybe, you know, something comes up, in order for Liliac to survive, or because they're not that cute young kids anymore, it's songs.
Yeah. That's
If
true.
you write hit songs,
Yeah.
catchy tunes, that people will love it, because, you know, I'm gonna produce it at the standard with any, I could go with any, against any producer. And if they write hit song, and I always encourage them, keep writing, because that one song that could be your biggest hit could save your career. You could, you know, take you to extremes, take you everywhere. Because at the end of the day, when people went to see Bret Michaels, we opened up for Bret Michaels, Loverboy.
Yeah.
They were waiting for that song. That was their song, that they loved that song. And Tom Kiefer, Nobody's Fool. Everybody was waiting for that song. When we opened up for them, I was waiting to hear that song.
Right. Yeah.
And you could have albums of somebody. If you have that big hit, that's gonna be, and you know, if you have more than one hit, there you go.
I remember sitting on an airplane from Dallas to Minneapolis next to the bass player for Tommy James and the Shandells. And we were talking about actually that very fact, because when Moni Moni was actually bigger, you know, by Billy Idol, but he said, you know, that was a huge song for us. But the minute Billy Idol took it even bigger, all the royalty stuff, he goes, and now we have a whole different lifestyle, because that one song made all the difference in the world to the band. Yeah.
So right now our hard work is that, and I think on the next album, I believe we have a few songs, but I believe one of them is gonna be a big hit.
Yeah.
Is huge hit, and it's gonna blow people's minds. I mean, it's gonna be a big shocker. And we've been working, and I think it's a big hit because not only that he has a catchy melody and lyrics, it comes from experience, from their experience, you know, a very intimate song that, and usually that's what really touches people's hearts. I mean, I show that people to some of our friends, and I see tears in their eyes. I mean, they were like, when you release that, it's gonna
Is that
blow.
the one that was recently teased with the whole Anna? You were just
that's not the one. That's one. Probably that could be another single.
Yeah.
But that will not be the first single that we're thinking.
Yeah. So do you have, just out of curiosity, because as a dad, having had, again, with my son Andrew, who did, you know, limited stuff, he would send me songs, and And he always had a kind of a different idea what a good song was. Like there's a song that he never put on an album that I still think is the best song he ever wrote. And I've got it actually on my Garage Band, and just
Wow.
think, this is still my favorite song he's ever written. But it wasn't, I was like, for him. You have that? Do you have some things that your kids have written and you think, man, this is awesome? And they're like, Dad, we don't want that.
Exactly. That's the exact. I mean, before we went on tour, we had about 16 songs,
Yeah.
and they cut down to about 10 of them. They just no, and I'm like, there were a few of them. I'm like, are you serious? I love those songs, and no, that won't match the other songs, and
yeah.
So I'm trying, because as a producer, and I'm their co-writer, because I do help them.
Yeah.
Structuring it. I do help them with putting it together. I do help them with even sometimes I give them ideas on lyrics, or I bring them like a chord progression, or like on Sail Away, I was the one that started writing the chord progression. Yeah. My friend, we wrote the chorus parts, and then we and then developed
Great song, by the way. Great song.
But as a producer, I have to serve the artist. I can't do it my way, because they have to sing the songs for the rest of their lives.
Right. Yeah.
Play songs. And, I kind of trust them, because, again, I know me influencing them with the cover songs. Yeah. We brought them a lot of fans, but most of them are my age and up.
Right.
And kids want the new album to attract a lot of young generation. And I like, to be honest with you, probably you guys know better than me what the kids they like and want. So I'm gonna let you write the songs, but as long as and then we tailor it to be professional. But you guys bring it to me, and let's do it. So I think we do have some songs that could be big hits. Actually, this song that I told you that we released as first one, we had older people listen and younger people, and everybody is liking it. So that's a great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Papa Liliac, I want to just thank you so much for your time. Anything kind of in closing before I kind of do a little wrap up, anything that you think that you want to share about the band that, any of our listeners, you talked about the Patreon page, and I think it's great because there's a lot of different levels of interaction with the band through that. I'll put that link also on our website for people, because again, I love what you're doing, but anything for the listeners that you want to share?
What's amazing about Patreon is that they have a Discord where I talk to them every day, every morning, kind of have a group of Patreons that are there. We talk things, coffee. Sometimes they have a lounge that we call, and we could have 20, 30 people talk at the same time talking. We discuss about things. Every evening I get back on and say goodnight, and if everybody wants this. And so we are like communicating, and then and chats with everybody once a week, every Saturday usually, and they do a live stream once a month. Then who's into video gaming, they get to play, especially with Ethan and Justin. They have once a month a video game time, so they all play together through the Discord. And not only that way they support a band, because as you see, there's a lot of expenses, on being independent. We have to pay the trips, the gas, everything. Not only that they support the band, they get some rewards, which is amazing. Like for example, right now we're gonna release an online concert, first live album, which is gonna be all original music.
Wow.
And everybody that's a Patreon gets half of their ticket discounted. And then besides that, they get a free live CD album. So I mean, you can get better than that.
No, and again on your website, we'll put that on our website. They can see all that stuff. They can get all the different stuff in there. I think it's, music is great. I've got, I talked about my 29-year-old, but I got a 12-year-old I exposed him to his very first rock and roll concert this last summer. I took him to Skillet. We were in front row for Skillet.
I love Skillet.
Yeah, love Skillet. In fact, I want John Cooper on here someday as well. But it's also another band that has a great female drummer, Jen Ledger. But it was great because it brought Austin and I, my son Austin and I together, because music does that as a family. And as a dad and as a kid, we could sit there and rock out to Skillet in the very front row. I got great pictures and great video, and you're doing that. I think you're the way you're doing it with a family band, with the interaction of your fans. It's relationship. It's all about relationship. Keep doing what you're doing, Papa Liliac.
Thank
Give
you.
the band my love and thanks for all that they're doing. And anything you want to say as a final, because I know you kind of always
Well,
sign off the same way.
yes, we did. We got to meet John as well when we had a show with Skillet at a festival, Montana. He's a nice guy, and
Yeah.
probably you'll definitely probably get on. And I like about him. I talked to his tour manager that they do half of the year Christian festival, and then the other half they're doing the rock and roll. And he's embraced from both sides, and that's amazing. I mean, I hope we can have Liliac the same way,
Yeah.
being by the Christian fans and the rock fans.
Yeah.
And it will happen. You never know.
Yeah,
I mean,
again, I think there's it's happening. I mean, again, my big album that there is my signed DC Talk album from back in the day, and we listen to a lot of everything. And in fact, my 16-year-old has special needs. I always say he learned to speak by listening to Casting Crowns, a Christian group.
wow.
And now
Wow.
my wife's got him listening to Bon Jovi. Like every time he gets in the car, now he goes Jovi, and he wants to rock out to Jovi. So you guys keep rocking. I love what you're doing, and thank you so much.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. Rock on and rock hard, and I can't wait to see you at one of our shows when Liliac.
I was hoping to get to Iowa State Fair. So I live in South Dakota, but I was close to, probably the closest you've been yet was the Iowa State Fair. Wasn't able to because of work schedule, but
Yes.
I definitely need to see you live.
That was a great, especially the second night.
Yeah.
It was a few thousand people. It was a phenomenal show. The crowd it was amazing. We love it.
Hey, listeners, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did doing that interview with Papa Liliac. Again, thank you, Papa Liliac. Thank you to the band Liliac for all the really hours of enjoyment that I've had listening to your group. And we wish you here at Love Being a Dad all the best. We hope we continue to have our relationship with you as you continue to, I have no doubt, to do great things in the future. Listeners, again, if you have not, go to our website, lovebeingadad.com. Subscribe to all our social media. We are fairly new at all this. We're trying to get up and going, and we would just love to see you on Facebook, LinkedIn, or wherever you can find us on our social media. And you can find that on our front page of lovebeingadad.com. Go subscribe to our podcast, give us a 5-star rating, help us get viewers to click in. And we sure appreciate you spending the time with us. I love being a dad, and we'll see you down the road. Love Being a Dad is a production of ATA Enhancement Services, all rights reserved.